Good morning, and we'll call to order the meeting of the Regional Transportation Commission of Southern Nevada. Ms. Quigley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Your first agenda item is to conduct your first citizens participation period.
This is the first time set aside for public comment. Those wishing to speak on a posted agenda item, now is your opportunity. Jane Camburn, items number 37 and 38. Good morning.
Is it this one here? Either one. Okay. I'm with Helping Hands of Henderson. We provide senior transportation to doctors' appointments, also to grocery stores for their nutrition and social events. And we just would like to thank the board for the continued support of the program to provide these services so that the seniors can remain in their own homes. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. I hope you feel the same way after the vote. Anyone else wishing to speak to the board on a posted agenda item? Okay, we'll close this portion of public comment.
Thank you. Your next agenda item is item number 2, which is to approve the agenda. Your agenda is in order and ready for your approval.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Motion on the floor. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Next item is your general manager's report. First item in today's general manager's report is an officer recognition for Allied Universal. Arthur Evans, better known to all of us at the RTC administration billing as Art, has been with Allied Universal for more than 7 years and has distinguished himself with his work ethic, professionalism, and knowledge of RTC policies and procedures. Art, can we have you come on down? Come on down. During his tenure at Allied Universal, a paratransit client attempted to attack a supervisor from NV Transportation. Officer Evans quickly intervened and attempted to defuse the situation with verbal commands. When the client failed to comply, Officer Evans physically restrained the individual and notified Metro, who assisted with removing the client from the property. Officer Evans's quick thinking and action prevented the MV supervisor from being assaulted and possibly injured. So again, let's recognize Mr. Arthur Evans.
I'd like to thank Allied Universal for everything they've done for me, for all the tools they've given me to meet my goals, and for flood control, RTC, thank you for everything. It's such a pleasure. I am blessed to work with such professionals on a daily basis. Thank you.
Next, we'd like to recognize an outstanding employee from TransDev. Do we have Jolando Ocampo in the room with us? Come on down, Jolando. TransDev sums up Jolando Ocampo in 3 words: hardworking, conscientious, and enthusiastic. As a maintenance clerk, Mr. Ocampo ensures that TransDev's fleet of more than 300 vehicles is efficiently repaired and effectively maintained on a daily basis, contributing to the company's smooth operations. He anticipates the needs of his department, volunteers to cover the tasks of employees who aren't in the office, and doesn't hesitate to take the lead in resolving problems, making him a model employee to his colleagues. Please join me in recognizing Jolando Ocampo.
Okay. Thank you for honoring me this morning. I work in maintenance department since 2008, and I'm here today to offer my sincerest gratitude to RTC, all the mayors and public officials for having me to receive this award. I'd like to thank everyone else who supported me during my work, our general manager, Clark Hart, our maintenance manager, Dave Bauer. Thank you again.
We report back to you on a quarterly basis on the statistics related to fuel revenue indexing. As of June 30th, so second quarter of this year, we're happy to report that 171 design and construction contracts have been awarded. 88 of those were construction and 83 were design, which includes 78 local small businesses. Of those local small businesses, 24 are certified DBEs, and of those 24 DBEs, 11 are minority-owned firms and 13 are women-owned firms. Yeah. FRI we've let out a total of, we've let out a total of $432 million which has been awarded. And the economists tell us that creates about 5,577 jobs. We will continue to report to you on a quarterly basis through the duration of the fuel revenue indexing program. Next, we'd like to congratulate the City of Las Vegas on launching the Downtown Loop. We are happy to work with your team, Mayor, and to provide this service to our residents and visitors we think is a great thing. So, applaud also for City of Henderson, or City of Las Vegas. Free, that's right.
We are monitoring that, because with no disrespect, as a city resident, I want to make sure that it doesn't start to impact our ability for transit, because those costs could be a factor that affects all of our constituents around the valley. So I hope we're tracking.
Monitoring
yeah.
revenue and ridership. Yep.
Okay, thanks. Is working. We already have calls coming in from different parts of the city. Please include us. Even calls from the county, which we can't go into without support from the county. Well, I think the issue is making sure that ridership does not impact our other bus revenue, which then impacts all of our constituents and the ability to serve them, because we do have that reliance. So that's my only concern on that part. It is data-driven. Yeah.
You know, I think as we move forward, we may want to monitor this for areas, if it's successful, for areas like downtown Summerlin or downtown Henderson. Yeah, I know. Nonetheless, but I think if it is successful using, you know, the advertising as a means of paying for the service, then perhaps other areas may want to explore that as well.
I know the city will be monitoring. I know MJ and her team will be monitoring, and we can come back to you in briefings and bring you up to speed. We are in the midst of our 4th annual Summer Heat Campaign to help educate and remind our transit passengers about how to travel safely in extreme temperatures. We have several organizations to thank for water donations, including Coca-Cola Dasani in partnership with KLUC 98.5 FM, 3 Square, Southern Nevada's only food bank, and Laborers Union Local 872. Tommy White has been very generous in helping us with this campaign. Altogether, they've donated more than 4,000 bottles of water that we're giving to our riders at chill stations throughout the summer. And we'd like to share with you a quick video clip of one of our chill stations at the Bonneville Transit Center.
What's going on? It's AD with Las Vegas' #1 hit music station, 98.5 KLUC, and today we're out here at the RTC Bonneville Transit Center for their Summer Heat Safety Campaign.
I'm Elijah. We're representing Reese's Italian Ice here in Las Vegas. Today we're serving up lemon Italian Ice for everybody here. Stay out of the heat, keep cool for the summer.
Through 3 Square's efforts in our partnership with RTC, we're able to distribute nearly 3,000 bottles for the Summer Heat campaign. You know, we're fighting triple-digit weather, so we want to make sure that people are not only being fed throughout the summer, but being properly hydrated to beat the heat.
Got a whole bunch of waters. We got ice cold Dasani waters, Horta subs, cookies, brownies. We got even sunscreen courtesy of the Southern Nevada Health District. We got Cowabunga Bay passes, Las Vegas 51's tickets, swag out the yin yang, and it's a great day. It's hot, but we want to bring awareness to how you can stay cool riding with RTC this summer. So get your waters, get your spill-proof containers, and have a good one, all right?
Fun in dealing with a pretty potentially serious situation and getting the message out that we need to stay hydrated. That concludes our general manager's report. Your next agenda item, are there any questions?
Comments or questions? Thank you.
Next agenda item is item number 4, which is to receive the Nevada Department of Transportation Director's report. Mr. Rudy Malfabon.
Thank you, Tina. And wanted to thank Chairman Brown for coming out yesterday for a great event out there in the Northwest for opening of that flyover ramp from westbound to southbound, the 215 to 95 at the Centennial Bowl interchange. It's a great project. Las Vegas Paving, our contractor, did a great job, brought it in on time and on budget. And wanted to also thank Tony Ilya from our public information staff down here. Did a great job of setting that up for us. Thanks, Tony. But I think that Chairman Brown's comments were spot on as far as the use of your fuel revenue indexing funds along with our federal money that we get to achieve those types of investments in transportation down here. That's very important to the community and to this board. Wanted to report that it's looking like the Trump infrastructure plan. This is the $1 trillion over 10 years investment for infrastructure, which transportation is a part of, will most likely be delayed because of the focus on health care and tax reform by Congress right now. It's taking precedence. So probably defer the infrastructure plan development in Congress till next year, unfortunately. The US DOT announced the Infra Grants program. This is repurposing some of the money that they had under a grant program called Fast Lane. We had submitted our applications for projects on I-15 north here in Vegas, or kind of north of Vegas, and in the northwest part on US 95. So two grant applications that we had submitted down here in Southern Nevada. And since they're changing the criteria, tweaking that a little bit, we're going to look at our applications that they're allowing resubmittal of those applications to address any kind of criteria that they may have put more emphasis on. But most of the criteria remained the same. There was also a rural element added to this program, but the actual money won't be dispersed until the next federal fiscal year, which starts next federal year starts October 1st. Here's an unfortunate note, is when Congress, they have to appropriate the budget every year for transportation across the nation. And when they pass the remainder of the federal fiscal year's budget through September 30th, they rescinded $857 million nationally. What that means is they looked at what money wasn't being spent, what money was shown on the books as not being committed to projects or programs, and they took some of that back, that spending authority that's given to the states. And unlike other rescissions, they told us specifically this much money has to come out of this pot of federal funds. So the programs that were taking a hit were focused on the ones that the State Department of Transportation receives, and I'll mention the categories of National Highway Performance Program, $6 million approximately taken from that. Surface Transportation Block Grant, $2 million approximately. TAP is the Transportation Alternatives Program, $500,000. Freight, $400,000. And then one that's significant for Southern Nevada and Washoe County is Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality, $2 million. So it's air quality related to not being able to meet federal standards for air quality in those two communities, Washoe County and Clark County. That money must be spent in those areas. But they took back approximately $2 million that we need to just work better to commit to projects, get them the money committed each federal fiscal year so that when there's money laying around not committed, because some entities will try to, well, I'm going to build up that balance and then put out a big project. But it's unfortunate in that they see it as not committed to a project, even though an entity might have a plan to build that money balance up over time. So $2 million, I don't, it doesn't mean that a project has to be canceled, but it's just an indication that we need to work more closely with the RTC to make sure that that money is committed. And we've been talking to Raymond Hess about using that money for larger projects too. Instead of giving it out to small projects here and there, it's better to consolidate it to larger projects. So we'll put our thoughts together along with RTC staff on how to avoid this from occurring, where we leave money on the table that gets basically swept up by Congress and appropriators. Although they continued the Tiger program for this current federal fiscal year, it's looking like, as they're talking about appropriating the budget for next federal fiscal year 18, that Tiger grant program, which was about $500 million a year nationally, is going to get eliminated. And they're using the money this current fiscal year to roll up into that infra grant program I mentioned. But that money, although it's this year's money, they're pushing it off to next year for the applications and distribution of that grant program. But it's looking like some of these grant programs, all they're doing is repurposing it and calling it something different. It doesn't really achieve anything, and they're just pushing the money off to next year. So I just wanted to make that comment that there's money moving around, but we just have to work together to kind of weather what the feds, what Congress really is doing. And then I want to make the point that the Federal Highway Administration kind of gets to be the bad guy, and they're really not. It's really Congress's actions on appropriations of budgets and funding that they're left holding the bag at USDOT and FHWA to implement what Congress tells them to do. So wanted to make that point. Now we all saw the news this week about Faraday Future is not going to go forward with their plant at Apex. And I wanted to remind everyone that we had looked at this substandard interchange it's on I-15 and US 93 even before Faraday came into the picture. We've had issues with operations of that interchange because that's where the landfill trucks get off, and that's where a lot of the freight that moves up US 93 gets off at that interchange of I-15 and US 93. So we are proceeding with the design build project to improve that interchange and widen US 93 and improve some of the drainage and flood control in that section of US 93. So we did receive proposals for the design build project. Ames Construction is the one that had the highest score when you combine 60% of their price with a 40% of their technical score in this design build procurement. So right now we're negotiating that contract. It was substantially lower than what we had budgeted, so we have some savings there. But we are hoping to have that contract presented to the Transportation Board for their approval in August, Transportation Board meeting. And as I said, we've noticed that this improvement is needed. In May of 2015 was when we submitted the Tiger Grant application. And as you recall, back in 2014, we had that flooding of I-15, washed it out, had a huge amount of truck traffic that had to take US 93. So it would eventually improve that type of situation if we do have any, in the years ahead with climate change, if we have other storm events that take I-15 out for a short amount of time, that it would be a relief valve for I-15. On the 215 and the I-15 North interchange, we've in the midst of procuring the consultant to do the final design of that interchange. The proposals were reviewed. There was a lot of interest locally from firms, and a selection will be announced soon. The selection committee just met yesterday, so I haven't even heard of who the preferred team is on that design project. And eventually, once we finish the design, we'll go on to the construction phase in future years. On the Tropicana and Hacienda Harmon environmental clearance, we are in the midst of the procurement. We don't have anyone selected yet. We have to review those proposals. So more to come on that probably next month as far as the review and the ranking of those proposals. But we did see the report from the stadium's traffic engineer on what improvements they're making and how they're addressing parking. And we've kind of been reading those news reports about using UNLV and shuttle buses. There are some things that I was talking with our district staff about comments that we're going to be submitting to the county as part of our regular coordination meetings on the stadium development. But more to come on that also. I just wanted to mention that we did receive that document and we're attending the coordination meetings. I'm ready to answer any questions.
Comments or questions? Commissioner G.
Thank you. Well, you brought up things, I know we're going to meet after the meeting today, but on the 93 Apex and then the issue of the congestion dollars, where are we at on 95 and Charleston interchange? That place is a mess. They're backed up constantly. That's been a necessary, needed piece forever. So, you know, with no disrespect, I like the truckers, but to me that was not a priority on your list. It did get moved up. When I looked at the list last, over and above some of the things that really affect our constituents. So can you just briefly tell me where we're at on that?
Yes. Commissioner, on 95, or what we call the Interstate 515 and Charleston interchange, that we've procured the services for a construction manager at risk. So that means that the contractor works with our design team and develops a design and gives us a price that we have to double check with an independent cost estimate. Eventually, I think that the design is anticipated to take at least into next year, possibly early in the year after, so 2019 for construction phase. So it's a two-step process. They help in the design, and then when the design's 100% complete, we get the board approval for the contract of the construction phase.
So where was it on the list of projects?
I couldn't answer that right now. I'd have to look to see.
Okay, maybe that's something.
We don't really have I could tell you what year was anticipated, but there's not a ranked list that NDOT keeps.
That would be helpful. And then they're going to have to look at, because Rudy, there's before you even get in line, you've got access to a side street, and so the traffic backs up there then before you even get through the next light. And so a part of it's the design of the access onto the ramp, and I don't know what that's being looked at, but that's a congestion factor as well as a design factor. So that's a place that money could have been used earlier on. So I'm hoping that we take a look at that part of it. My constituents I'm tired of the east side being left out. We're the oldest roads, the oldest everything. It's not just you, it's our own public works that I argue with. But I know Commissioner Kirkpatrick, Weekly, and I continually have calls about this and the fact that we want beautification in our medians done by NDOT in design regularly being incorporated. I'm not even asking for plants. Just give me some rocks and some metal things like the cities are doing and we're starting to do in ours. Something that makes it look other than concrete and black asphalt. So that's part of what we're going to talk about today, but I just wanted, my east side's been neglected by everybody. And now you just did something, I think, on, was it Charleston and Lamb? They're complaining about that the new design is backing the traffic up, but I haven't driven that recently to see.
Yes, I think that there were some improvements there, but I'll have to look into what
Yeah, I
specifically was
can't
done.
remember if it's Lamb or Nellis. I apologize that they were talking about that something was just done.
I know that there's something in the works at Charleston and Lamb. I don't know if it was the actual one that was built
Okay,
yet.
and maybe that's something, Tracy, we could take a look at today, because they were complaining that we made the lane closer together, which then is forcing more traffic back into the regular passing lanes, but I have to go
We'll
drive
take a
it
look at that,
myself. So,
Commissioner.
okay. And then secondarily, the projects for the stadium, you mentioned that you have, we have meetings apparently with folks. What exactly is being looked at? Is there a flyover that has to go in? Is there some additional projects that they should be paying for and our constituents should not be paying for?
I know that they committed to a 30-foot pedestrian bridge to bring pedestrians from the Strip all the way towards the stadium, and it would go over I-15. We have some comments associated with that, but it was something that they were committing to fund or at least it wasn't NDOT's responsibility to build that. But we
Right.
have to coordinate, and we have to anticipate that we'll have to expedite permits for that infrastructure that's in our right-of-way. And we'll, work with the Federal Highway Administration. Since it's interstate, they have to
They have
review
to sign
permits
off,
too.
right, yeah.
So we'll get them informed so that they can make decisions and approvals quickly.
So do you look then at the road, so are there other road, other than the pedestrian component, what else is needed to make that site flow better? And then we probably have to look in the county as far as road projects, but what do you anticipate from NDOT?
Yes, we're looking at, since NDOT has a portion of some of the roads only within the interstate control of access, but Russell Road definitely, mentioned Tropicana. There's some other roads that are, all the roads that kind of feed into the stadium that could have impacts to our system. So we're trying to make our comments comprehensive, and I've told our staff, put them all together, put it out on the table. The answer might be, we thought of that, this is the best solution that we have as the developer of the stadium, but I just want to make all the comments that we can so
Okay.
that it's on the record.
And I think that makes sense, because are you part of then of the development agreement that's going to be negotiated with the county? Do your comments get incorporated, do you know, into that?
I don't think that, I think it's part of the process, but we're not partners to the agreement. I
But
think
we
that
should
the
reflect,
county would
I'm just
consider
thinking
that.
out loud, we should
Typically,
reflect
our
your
traffic engineers
comments, yeah,
work with each
because
other.
if it now impacts our regular streets because of the flow, that, in my opinion, is their cost for infrastructure, not ours. And so we need to be aware of how that comes into play. Because I know Tropicana, we talked, or maybe it was my public works staff, we didn't do some things with the legs years ago, but now
Right.
we're going to have to because of this project. Well, that's an impact from them, not from us. And there should be some costs shared and or funded. So those are the types of things I think we need to be cognizant of, both as RTC as well as just commissioners, because we need to be up to speed on making sure that, I want them to be successful, but not at the expense, even more expense of public giveaways that we're already, gotten. So as you maybe meet with us or brief us, it'd be helpful to see what pieces are actually triggering infrastructure needs that they're going to have because of their location, so that we're at least aware of that part of it. Thank you. Oh, and then on the Tiger grants, I apologize. So they reallocated the Tiger, or they put it
So
off?
the Tiger grant, the president had, his administration folks in USDOT said they wanted to make some cuts in transportation funding, discretionary grant program. So Tiger was one of those. Congress said, no, we're going to continue that program. When they appropriated the funding for the rest of the federal fiscal year, they put $500 million, basically appropriated the funds for $500 million to the Tiger program. Then what's happening now is that money's just being pushed into next federal fiscal year. So it got rolled into the infra grant funding. I think that's $1.5 billion. So what they did was take Fastlane pot of money and the Tiger grant pot of money, smush them together, put it into
And
fiscal
put a
year
new
18.
name on it, so it makes it look like it's new money, but it really isn't. I can say that.
No
You
comment.
don't have to read it. That's unfortunate, because I know even RTC, we did a lot of projects through the Tiger grant component. So, okay, thank you.
Yes, that's an accurate statement, is that not only has RTC of Southern Nevada been very successful for a significant amount of Tiger grant funding, but Washoe RTC as well.
Rudy, just adding to some of the things that Commissioner G spoke about, the $2 million congestion mitigation that was identified to go to Washoe and Clark, are we going to be seeing a fair share of that in Southern Nevada? We have 75% of the population down
Yes.
here, and
Actually,
I just want to make sure that that's coming this way.
There's a good story there, Mayor, that, so years ago, the proportion was modified so that it was geared more towards the population in Southern Nevada, should get a larger share of that. But we gave the entities, particularly Washoe, because they had a cut in effect by that new calculation that considered the census population numbers. So, but we gave them, because they were dependent on that funding, we said, we're going to give you 3 years, and this next year, fiscal year 18, I think, is when they take the hit and you get more money down here.
Okay.
So we first saw that after the last census, and we just started looking and asking questions. Why is this distributed this way? Finally got to a distribution we thought was fair based on that population, and so you'll get more of that CMAQ funding. It was just that we had to transition it because they were dependent on that funding up there.
Okay, thank you very much. And then the other question, as you're talking about federal funding being kicked down the road for another year, I wonder, do they bring to Congress's attention the scorecard that's done every year that talks about infrastructure in the country being at a D rate, that our infrastructure is deteriorating across the country, and that this is an important investment in our communities for the future and in public safety for that matter?
Definitely. So the groups that, not only the state DOTs typically rely a lot on AASHTO, that's our association of all the state DOTs, as well as other groups such as the ASCE, that's the Civil Engineering Association, Public Works Association, Chambers of Commerce. A lot of folks latch onto those reports, and when they get the opportunity to talk to either committees or their individual representatives in Congress, senators and congressmen and congresswomen, that they bring that information forward. So it's a good source of information, and people can say, well, we deserve this grade instead of that, but the point is our infrastructure is deteriorating, we need to address that, and so it's a good tool to convey that and communicate that to Congress.
I was just going to say, I wanted to add something to what the mayor said and to what Chris G said. I just think that there are some of us very concerned that the Raiders pick their site. There are other sites that perhaps wouldn't have involved so much money for for transportation to the games, but they pick that site. And sometimes these little things add up to a lot, and it looks like you hear this, you hear that, you hear parking, and we just want to be sure and be aware of when these things occur that are necessary because of the Raiders' decision, so that the taxpayers aren't responsible for their decision for their business. I just wanted to emphasize that. I hope I'm emphasizing it correctly.
Commissioner?
Rudy, I forgot to ask, is prevailing wage now paid on CMAR and at-risk, or did that go away last session, or the previous?
I don't know about other agencies, but we've always used prevailing wage.
You're still doing
rates,
prevailing,
yes,
okay, good,
for CMAR.
thank you.
Rudy, if I may, would you, when you talk about the federal government looking at committed projects, what triggers that?
It's programming in the Federal Financial Management Information System, FEMAS they call it. So NDOT does the programming of the funds, but we work with planning agencies across the state to make sure that your federally funded projects, it's basically a process that starts when you approve your plan, it rolls up into the state plan, and then it's just the implementation of that is coding it into the federal system. So as soon as those approvals of the plans are made, then we can get those things coded into the system.
So
and sometimes we just have discussions. If it's not a major change, it's just tweaking moving money around. We can do that anytime, but they do lock down the federal system towards the end of August, because that last month of the federal fiscal year, it's pretty much, you can't change stuff, you can't add stuff or mess with the programming at that time.
So from the RTC's perspective, when we adopt our plan and submit it to you, that's what
yes.
our role is?
You're identifying what federal funds, what category of funds, but there's constant communication between your staff on your regional transportation improvement program and our staff, so that they make sure that everything's balanced and that those programming changes are made as soon as possible.
Okay, good. And also echo your comments as far as the press conference to Tony and the entire communications team. They did a great job. Susan Klecker, our division administrator with FHA, she seems to enjoy coming here, and we always play the good host, and always good to have an ally there. But overall, a good event, and I think they did a wonderful job acknowledging all the people that were involved in that. So Tony, good work to you and your team. And likewise, Rudy, I got to talk to a couple of the project managers. The gentleman that's handling the I-11, the Boulder City bypass, forgot his name, right? If you haven't seen it, I think Tina sent out a aerial, I'm guessing a helicopter shot that. If you haven't sent that to the board, send that out. It's just a phenomenal 4-minute video of the magnitude of that project. Especially, he indicated towards the dam, those that have traveled up to Utah through the gorge, he said there are mini gorges out there that are going to be just as dynamic and beautiful driving through. So it was wonderful to hear that, and certainly all the other things that are going on. And just as much as I have often challenged NDOT, I'd like to acknowledge you publicly today that things are going extremely well. You people are NDOT's putting a lot of great projects here down in Southern Nevada, and certainly on behalf of the board, we appreciate that commitment.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next on your agenda is to elect a chair and vice chair. This is for action.
Comments? Motion on the floor. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Yay.
Motion carries.
Next on your agenda is your consent agenda, which is made up of items 6 through 52 and may be taken in one motion.
Motion on the floor. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Your only non-consent item is to receive information from legal counsel regarding potential and existing litigation. Craig Gilbert.
Mr. Chair, there's no reason for a meeting today, so we can conclude that item.
And we will keep that as a standing item each month, just in case we do have issues to discuss related to legal issues. And last is your final citizens participation period.
This is the second time set aside for public comment. Those wishing to speak to the board, now is your opportunity. Dorothy Barnes. Chris, you're number 2.
Good afternoon, Dorothy Barnes. I have a mailing address of P.O. Box 466, Las Vegas, Nevada 89125. What's bringing me here today, the hot weather, and some time ago I heard there was a shooting on the South Script bus. Somebody was murdered. Someone got a hold of my badge. I'm supposed to be able to report it in the CID and get a badge. Someone has used that badge to do things, and I hope they didn't use it to order that hit. Because I was telling mental health, I'm waiting to take on the authority as a mafia boss, not to order violent hits, but to have people damned and cursed that's breaking the law, and to get some control over them using me to do illegal things. These people that's doing that, they're illegal and illegitimate, and they have placed my life on the line, playing with me with the police department and the FBI. My appointment didn't come from the federal government. The Commonwealth system is a completely separate system from the federal system. There are people that work in Washington, D.C. Parliament. When a free individual is chosen in this country, it comes through those people. And I was selected before I left Louisiana. I was not supposed to be left behind when they started these programs, and I asked them to remove my name off any and all such programs. I see people entering the buses with guns on. They don't have a uniform on, so I don't know if they're undercover universal security or they're undercover police officers, or just citizens with a gun permit. I don't know if they have a gun permit, but they're getting on the bus in plain clothes with guns on. And there was a shooting on the 109 one night. I was on the CX coming down, and I saw the police in the bus, and they said it was a shooting. Some people got on the CX. They said they gave all kinds of false information on the shooting, but I understand a gentleman was into it with the bus driver and shot through the top of the bus, which caused damages to the 109 that night. And then later I found out nobody got shot on the bus. He argued with the driver, and he got angry and showed the driver he had his gun. He shot through the top of the bus. These people that are entering these buses different times with guns strapped to them, I'd like to know if they undercover officers or they hired by the police or the security company. Who are these people? And do they have the right to get on the bus with these guns? Now, I'm trying to become a mafia boss, not to be violent, to do things the civil way and cooperate with law enforcement. And when there's a hit order, it has to go through the State Department to say this person is too corrupt to handle in this society. They're doing too many violent things. They're doing too many things to hurt people and jeopardize the public safety. And that's the mob boss. When I told mental health I'm in training to become a mob boss, it's to control and help control some law and order in this. Thank you.
Thank you. Christoph.
Could I have this on the screen? It's very important. Okay, over here, good. My name is Christoph. I live in Clark County. I am a compassionate person like you people should be. But look at this picture. It means 1,000 things. They're completely steel. It was tested by several major companies in California and said this would stop any bus. But the reality is, as I spoke to Steve Sidlak, the chairman, on the matter of the strip, oh, we got this bowler. Well, people are laughing about that because it falls apart. I knew about this 10 years ago, but nobody wanted to talk about it. I'm only concerned with you leaders who people are not getting the respect of working people who use the bus shelter from Henderson to North Las Vegas. I go to those areas, even to the hospital, and they say the service stinks. I don't say it. I don't ask them. I only have people go out and make the calls. You put out a flyer here. Doesn't tell the people. We're not on TV like the regular county commissioners meeting or the city. We want input. How can we get input when we don't put anything for the people to say, maybe we can solve this problem? We're never going to solve problems in here saying, let's spend more money. And you are making a lot of money because we had put some legal people together to find out how much you're making, how much you're advertising. Oh yes, those bus shelters are advertisement. They're making money. But I'm not talking about Christoph. I'm talking about the people that I contact who lost their loved ones, lost their legs and arms over the period of 3 years, documents. They want to know why that these bus shelters is not complete ADA because, and the state and the Attorney General says, that's out of our hands. Everybody is washing their hands and walking away saying, well, that's the way life is. What is life worth, Mr. Brown? $1,000, $100,000, or $1 million? It's not worth anything because these people have a right to go to work and they can't work if they can't get to the place. So I leave you with this thought. With my systems, this is recording outside, that if we're not going to work together and stop coming up with reports and come up with results, as Mr. Scalabro says, it's not going to work, I would like to bring him under oath into a court to justify his lies. And I tell you very clearly, you leaders, and Mrs. Carol Goodman, you know me for a long time. I'm not fighting for Christoph, I'm not fighting for you, I'm fighting for the poor people who have to take the bus. And if we don't do it, you're gonna see something on the streets that's gonna embarrass everybody. We have mobile billboards, 9 of them. I promise these people who I spoke to that lost their loved ones, we're putting the money up, whatever it takes. So I leave you with this thought. I'm not 84 just because I want to be 84, but I bring it to you many times and everybody looks and says, Mr. Christoph is just blabbing. Well, there's no more blabbing. We're going to do it, and if anybody says we're going to pay off these politicians, the people can't trust their leaders. That's what's going to be on the sign. We cannot trust you. I thank you. Chairman, I ask you to return the call from Donna. Nobody calls back these people. That's why people don't trust the systems that are going to be developed. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else wishing to speak to the board?
Mr. Chairman, could I make a clarifying statement on that air quality and congestion mitigation program? I definitely wanted to clarify that the RTC staff have been working with us on making changes to the program so that it's more efficient as far as the process. I wanted to make it clear that RTC is definitely a partner in administering that program with NDOT. And a lot of the times it's just about getting projects that will use up the funds, committing the funds that year and seeing those projects through, which really falls upon others, not so much the staff at RTC. And I was just kind of wanted to clarify that. But we all have to work together, the county, the cities, NDOT, and RTC, to make sure that we don't have these types of decisions focused on certain programs.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak to the board? Seeing and hearing no one, thank you. This meeting is adjourned.